Good afternoon. I'll call the meeting to order for the River Trust and welcome everybody here. First item of business is to receive update on Oklahoma City Riverfront Redevelopment Authority committee activities. Do we have any from any of the committee chairs? Anything to report on? Thank you. Receive update on MAPS 3 River Subcommittee activities. Anything on that? Just progressing. Well, that's good. That's progressing. Thank you. Next item is the minutes of the meeting of July 19th, which are in your packet. Need a motion?
Move approval.
Any corrections or additions? For your vote? It's approved unanimously. Yeah, that's right. Next is the consent docket. We have the sand mining and oil and gas revenue report and the Oklahoma River corridor events update, which are both in your packet.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. By any questions on that? Record your vote. It's approved unanimously. Thank you. Primary agenda items. First is to receive the unaudited interim financial statements for the period ending June 30. Second. City manager have any comments or anybody?
Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Please record your vote. That's approved unanimously. Next item is a preliminary report on project MPO 421 canal extension from Oklahoma River North to Bricktown Canal, known as Zone G. And I think Tim and Scott are both here. And I know there's a presentation in your packet, but that you.
Good afternoon. Tim Johnson with Johnson Associates. Along with me is Scott Howard with Howard Fairbairn Site Design. We teamed together to do this project for the city. It's the last link, as you know, between the river and the Bricktown Canal.
Just to set their expertise, Tim was the design engineer on the North Canal.
Correct.
And Scott worked with Dennis Clowers on the design of the South Canal, which included the Zone G portion of it. And so Scott was involved in that project, and Tim was involved in the project.
So there's not a part of any of the river and the canal area that one of us hasn't touched. What we're looking at on the project is, as you've read in your preliminary report, is to make a connection that would allow the Devon cruise boats to make their way up through the bridge that was built as part of the I-40 relocation, install a turning basin that would be large enough to allow passengers on and off the boats at that location, that being north of the highway and at the south end of the existing canal. This is the existing canal that stops, it turns around, and canal boats go on that canal. There's a 19-foot vertical elevation difference between the two watersheds. So what we're looking at in our initial design and is included in our report is to allow a pedestrian access that would be a walking trail that would connect the two points and absorb the vertical elevation difference. We've looked at several concepts on that, and Scott's going to talk on a couple of other concepts that we're working on. But what we want to do is introduce water at that point so the whole time you're walking, there'll be water with you, either traveling at the same rate you're traveling as far as the slope, or pools that terrace into the other pool. And that would be a recirculating system, probably from the canal water back down and back up, so that we're not tied to the fluctuation in the river. And then the other focal point that we're working on is as the boats come through to the north, allowing a vista to be created either through a grass amphitheater to see these statues that are already in place and will continue to be added to. And we'll deal with that with landscaping, and then at night we'll also be working with lighting to help attract the visual of both of those features. As you go south, we propose that we at least include in the base design the option to allow for an alternate water feature at that turn as you come south. The budget really doesn't have adequate funds to allow for that. We'll be tying into the existing basin by removing the similar to the bridges you see along the river now where they cross the creeks. Nothing really fancy, just a pre-designed and constructed pedestrian bridge. The walkways are anticipated to be varying widths. We're anticipating the walkway on the east side of the waterway to be wider, to allow for one of the requests to allow for possible tram use during big events, big boating events. So we're looking at this walkway being about 20 feet wide and this side being about 12 feet wide. More pedestrian on this side, more bicycle, and possible limited tram use during, which would be a golf cart type tram during big events. That would allow people to come up to this parking area, to the concession area there that exists. Obviously, we're not showing all the landscaping that we're proposing or have in the budget on this, or it'd be too cluttered to really see the main features. I'd like Scott to visit about a couple of the other designs, and as we go forward with our final designs, we'll approach a final design on one of these based on feasibility and budget, but the concepts are all very similar.
Tim, let me ask you a question. On the parking that's right down would be directly the added on right there.
Right.
Is that in this project, or is
No,
that something else?
It's not included in the project, but we're going to include it in our grading design to allow for that to be added in the future. It's not in our current budget.
Okay, and then the additional water feature you were talking about is the one just right there, isn't it? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that would be very similar to what's over in the southern corner.
Right.
Just a waterfall type feature.
And that's the about $250,000, what you're saying?
Yeah, depending on what we do with it. We'll tweak that a little bit as we get into the final design. We've been asked by Public Works to include the elevator as an alternate, ticket booth location as an alternate, and the alternate fountain as an alternate in the final bid documents.
I got a couple of questions. Well, I want you to go ahead, because you may answer me.
As Tim mentioned, we're looking at a couple different options on the water feature itself. Not only do we have a visual focal point as you come through the bridge, and you'll be able to see the land run sculptures, but when you come down through the trail, you'll be looking towards this water feature. And that's where we have 2 and 3 different concepts. One is where we have some stone walls, and the water is kind of in the center, and it will cascade over multiple walls so that you get the effect of water falling down the hillside. And the trail on all the concepts is accessible, so there won't be any restrictions to accessibility. This is a concept where the water, as you walk down the sidewalk, the water would be on both sides of you at the ground level, running with you and following the slope of the sidewalk. So, again, just different ways to create interest in the movement of the water and provide aesthetic quality to the canal feature.
Is part of the switchback because of the slope requirement for ADA?
That is correct. Again, with the 19-foot of grade change elevation, we're able to maintain an accessible sidewalk without handrails or anything like that, because it's not technically a ramp that transitions through about 450 linear feet of sidewalk.
Is there going to be a set of stairs somewhere that people can use if they don't want to do a switchback?
We're looking at that option paired with the elevator location, providing a kind of a third access point.
Because you're going to have those people that are in a hurry and they'll want to get down there. On the pedestrian bridge down to where you're connecting to Zone G down there, to get that high enough for the boats to go under, are you going to have to build up on each side? How high is that bridge going to be above the normal grade right now?
Yes, we'll have to come down and reconstruct the sidewalk in here and ramp it up. We'll have to get enough clearance to meet the boat's covered requirements, and I think they're approximately 11, 12 feet above the water surface.
So you'll keep a level type bridge. You're not going to do like an arch bridge going over.
It won't be a steep arch. It'll have some sort of camber, but not anything excessive.
In the report under lighting, it talks about the length of the tunnel, which is, I'm not sure how many feet it is, but it's pretty good size. And it says, in your report, it says, although with the limited budget and the initial discussions with ODOT stating they did not want any additional fixtures attached to the bridge structure, there may be restrictions on final design that don't please you, basically. What does ODOT have against hanging lights underneath the structure? They think they're too heavy, or what?
We're not sure what that was their initial reaction when we met with them to talk about the project and the fact they have some existing lighting on there that's got exterior mounted conduit. We talked to them about taking that down and putting different kind of lighting up, and they were just adamantly opposed initially. We haven't gone back to them with a final design. Our hopes would be that they'd soften on that. However, we are planning on including inside that walkway both pedestrian height like bollards that would light the footpath, and then higher lights that would light down on the boat path. And we're anticipating using some LED lighting that would give us both color.
So you're planning on doing that whether ODOT
Correct.
does anything or not? So
the advantage would be is if ODOT allows us to do something that attaches to the outside, we can spray some light onto the walls themselves, because right now they're not very attractive, and
right.
We'd like to put some color on them if we could.
What's the distance underneath the bridge?
It's about 150 feet.
About a half a football field. Yeah. Okay. Any questions, comments?
I guess maybe I would just comment, I'm a little bit concerned, I think, the way Gary is about that switchback path and making sure there would be access somehow to go straight down. Those of us that are terminally late are going to be frustrated if we have to switch back.
Yeah, we do plan on adding a set of stairs as part of the elevator piece. You get into equal access issues with ADA, and so we want to be real careful not to push those buttons, but I think with the pathway the way it is, not being technically a ramp, that we should be able to allow for a stairway in that area.
I would say, Mr. Chairman, I think the whole concept is highly attractive and is a great way to combine the two, just work out the details, but I think it's really, really nice.
Thank you.
On the elevator, you said, it says in here, it sounds almost like if required. Wouldn't an elevator be required?
No, because of the way we've done the ramping, initially, for budget reasons and for maintenance reasons, we visited with the Parks Department about maintaining the existing elevators along the canal. The way those were designed with an open box and visible cabling and mechanics, they've been tough to maintain, subject to vandalism, the normal dirt and dust. So this design would be more similar to the new elevator that was put into the Myriad Gardens, more of an enclosed, cooled system that would be cooled as part of the building.
Could you, if you eliminated the switchbacks and put in elevator, would that satisfy ADA, or does it require both?
No, you could satisfy ADA with an elevator by standalone.
Looks like that might be an option to do with the stairs. You could go ahead and do a water feature if it looks, but eliminate maybe 450 feet of trail. I don't know what anybody else's thoughts are on that. But
in our initial design, our direction was that we would prefer not to have an elevator if we didn't have to. So that's why we took the tact we did. Certainly, if we're going to add an elevator in, it would be something we could look at as far as using an elevator. It doesn't move mass people very fast. The pathway would obviously give us more of a mass movement of pedestrians leaving an event or coming to an event.
I think it'd be an option, but I think the water would help the effect that you're not just climbing down from one waterway to the next. It almost give you the impression that the two were connected in some way. It'd be nice. Can you phase the construction to where you get almost all this done before you have to break out into the river?
We're going to work real close with the people that control the functions that go on the river. We've already had that conversation. Pat set up a meeting where we got a lot of the stakeholders involved, and they've had a lot of good input. So we're going to try and time that to where we don't mess up any events.
You'd lessen the time that the eastern basin would have to be drained an awful lot if you could wait till just before you punch through.
That's correct. We'll also be looking at a repair to one of the walls down there while it's down as well.
What's the next step, Jim? I mean, I know we're supposed to receive this report. What's the next step?
Well, he's in the preliminary design aspect of it, and we're going to go through some steps and get him going on final design here at some point.
I think the Public Works is taking our preliminary report to council soon. I don't know what the date is.
I don't know the date on it, though. It's within the next few weeks.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? So then our action today is just to receive the report?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Need a motion?
So moved.
Any further discussion? Thank you, Tim. Record your vote. It's approved unanimously. Thanks, Scott. Okay. Next item is adopt resolution authorizing financial participation by the River Trust in the amount of $3,000 to complete project initiative. What once was the county Shine program to clean up the roadway and trail at Crystal Lake, and Brian's been real instrumental in this. Brian, you want to kind of give us a little synopsis on that?
I think City Care has done a great job cleaning up with Shine, with the county, but then they ran into obstacles where they weren't going to be able to complete it. What we basically have is a huge pile of debris back behind the building, the old building that was there, and then we have quite a few of the cedars and all that have been cut. So then we went back, and Shine could do it, or county could do it as long as they had matching funds. Chesapeake has given some matching funds. So we went back, I met with Ron out there, we went back and said, what would this take to get it cleaned up? And it was basically $6,000 using the county's discounted rate, which then if we could participate with $3,000, then the Chesapeake match is $3,000, and we'll just get it cleaned up. I think right now the use there, now not when it's been super hot, but up until then, the use has been pretty incredible when I've just gone by there in the evening and on the number of people that are starting to use the docks for fishing and different things like that, which is I think what we want. He's also working real close with county extension agents, and they're getting a handle on those cattails that were all out there. So we're making huge movement, but I think get that debris on out of there. There's enormous piles of tires and then trash. They've separated everything in terms of what the different type of debris was, but it will be to get it out. So I think if we could do this to help, City Care never put the trash there in the first place, and if we can do this to help them get it off that property, I think they got a handle on all the illegal dumping. We don't seem to have any of that. They've taken care of that. For a long time, I think people were taking the shortcut from the landfill, and we had a lot of that. So I think we don't have the motor vehicles out there. We don't have the trash out there. So I think if we could do this, it will just be a step in the right direction.
Okay. You want to make a motion then, Brian?
I would like to make a motion that we would participate and contribute $3,000 to work in hand-in-hand with the Shine program for cleanup of Crystal Lake.
It's been moved and seconded. I want to thank Brian. He spent a lot of time out there working on this. He really has, and appreciate that. So that's really a good deal. Please record your vote. That's approved unanimously.
Ron, quick question. The memo talks about cleaning up the debris and fixing the roadway. This money won't do anything to the road.
It really, what they did is they graded it out. They're going to use some of the bark chips and all that they're chipping.
Brian, put your mic on.
They're going to use some of the bark chips that they're doing for putting in some of those roads. They're not using all the roads for vehicle, so there is some improvement to keep some of that from washing.
Yeah. Good, thank you. Next item is the claims docket, and we have one item that was on your place, and it's deal with Shell Construction, which is for sod. And the way I understand it, this can just be added to the claims docket, so we need a motion for the claims docket.
Second?
Moved and second, discussion and questions? Record your, yeah, record your vote, thank you. Additional items, comments by staff, Jeannie and Pat. Pat?
The Director of Development report's in your packet, Mr. Chairman and trustees. Just a couple of highlights out of that. One is the dedication date would call your attention to the Chesapeake Finish Line Tower has been changed. You should be or have already received an invitation to that event, but you might note on your calendars it is changed to Wednesday, September 14 at 5 o'clock. And that coincides with a rowing regatta that's taking place at the same time. So if you mark your calendars and look for that in the mail. The development that Tim and his associate Scott outlined today is one that's a major game changer, both in terms of the flow of pedestrian and other traffic in the area, but it will also, we think, be a game changer for the Oklahoma River cruisers and the ability to connect those two activity nodes, I think, is going to be very substantial, and so we're looking forward to that. Additionally, we have the Boathouse Foundation has actually purchased, I don't believe it's been delivered yet, but purchased the first set of trams, which are basically a golf cart platform of a tram that would be operated in and around the Regatta Park area and the whole Boathouse district to bring patrons from, at times, remote parking. We've sort of become a victim of our own success in terms of parking in a lot of times. So we want to give people as positive an experience as we possibly can, and when they do have to park in a fairly remote location, we want to be able to give them the equivalent of a Disney or a Six Flags experience, where there's a tram that comes by, picks them up, takes them to the venue of their choice, whether it's a wedding reception in the Devon Boathouse or some sort of an activity in the Chesapeake Boathouse, or the finish line for a drag boat race or other activities that may be taking place in the area. So very excited to see that moving forward. If there's any questions, be happy to address them. Otherwise, would request that the report be received as submitted.
I've got some questions. On that particular thing, under your report, it talks about details such as hours, pricing, event coordination will be planned later. Is that pricing for the event to be held or pricing for somebody to get on the tram?
No, the tram would be a free service. It would simply be for various events, they would be asked to contribute to,
Foundation?
Correct, contribute toward the operation of that tram.
Okay, another question. Back on page 1, and I know I've got an email from you about the Blue Cross Blue Shield submittal.
Yes.
Describe that in a little more detail, what they're talking about.
Well, it's a program that is, there is a foundation based in Washington, D.C. that is set up to create playground spaces in urban areas all through the United States. Blue Cross Blue Shield is one of the founding sponsors of this institution. Blue Cross Blue Shield had approached the Boathouse Foundation staff about the possibility of developing a playground as a part of their footprint, if you will. And so there was some research done, and the determination was that yes, it could be done, but the deadline for submittal was, I believe it was last Friday. So the material has been submitted. It's under review by the organization in D.C. At this point, and we have not heard back, but the preliminary indications both from the Boathouse Foundation and from Blue Cross Blue Shield is that it would be a favorable response.
And that's to be, the initial thought is between the proposed OU and UCO Boathouse? Is there additional space, or are we just kind of putting it in?
There is additional space in between there that was designated at one point for an event center. The event center has fallen off the radar, so there is a space in there. And this wouldn't be a huge footprint, but would simply be available for folks who maybe they're down for a drag boat race, or maybe they're down for the Christmas boat parade, or perhaps a rowing event or canoe and kayak event. So it's a place where kids can go and play while the other activities are underway. There are several possibilities as to location. That one was simply proposed early on, but there will be some additional review and studies, and certainly anything of a substantial nature will come back to this body.
Last question. On your bottom paragraph, page 1, it talked about the meeting to review preliminary engineering with Zone G with all the stakeholders. What were the comments?
Comments were positive. There were several things. One is that the notion of the stairs being available for those who are in more of a hurry and don't want to do the zigzag trail. That was one of the outcomes of that stakeholder meeting. The notion of making a direct link so that a tram that is serving the area could get through on the sidewalk, that was also discussed. There were several sightline issues discussed. We had representatives of Water Taxi of Oklahoma there. Norm Beckhoff and Chad Huntington were there. So we talked about the ability for patrons getting off of the boats, the Devon boats in Zone G, the lower canal, to be able to see line of sight where their point of destination is at the top of the hill, if you will. And so I think Johnson Associates and Howard Fairbairn Site Design have done a good job of taking some of those notes into consideration. And there are some design processes underway right now, and we'll see the results of that the next time we make a presentation here. But I think some good design thoughts along the lines of what were discussed here have come forward. Generally very positive. And the representative to the mayor's Committee on Handicap Concerns was unable to make that stakeholder meeting, but he was able to review the plans last Friday, and he said that he was very pleased with what Tim had done on a preliminary basis, and felt as though it was something that he could recommend very, very favorably and enthusiastically as meeting the, not only meeting but perhaps exceeding the ADA requirement. So.
Okay. Meg?
I did, Mayor, if I could just add a quick question, Pat, and I see Wendell's still here. Your last paragraph talks about the Disc Golf Group Association that's talking about that. This came up a couple of years ago, I think, Wendell, with regard to one of the parks, maybe South Rotary Park. Are you engaged in this conversation?
No, ma'am, we haven't been involved in the discussions of a disc golf there, but we'd be glad to be consulted.
Okay. I think that probably would be a good idea. You shared some concerns with me originally about one of the locations that were proposed, and so it probably would be advisable to be in that loop.
Be glad to help.
Great.
Is this Frisbee golf, or what is it?
Yes,
is that what
it's
it is?
Yes.
Frisbee golf? Okay.
disc golf and frisbee golf are the same,
Yeah.
yes, sir.
Okay. Anybody have any questions of Pat? Yeah.
I
Kathy?
do. Can we go back to the pedestrian crossing? What if you have runners on there at the same time that you have people trying to get across? Have you made accommodations for that?
The pedestrian, are you talking about the Zone G
Yes.
connection? There needs to be some signage available in the area. I think if you have a runner, a bicyclist, and a tram coming through at the same time, obviously you've got some traffic issues.
Right.
So I think, some signage and perhaps even some markings on the trails themselves. And that's with all of the input that's been received from the various stakeholders. That was also brought up, and I suspect that when you see Tim's next report, it will have addressed those kinds of things, because we're dealing with a lot of different users of the trail system through there, and we certainly want to encourage all of those uses to the extent that they can be safely managed.
Okay. Any other questions, Pat? Thank you. Need a motion to receive this report?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Record your vote. Approved unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gene, do you have anything you want to offer today, or you just want to be here? No, I knew you'd want to talk.
Give up an opportunity to talk about Oklahoma River Cruises. We're putting together our fall mailer. It'll be finalized later this week for our holiday party packages. So be looking for those to come in the mail around mid-September. But we're gearing up for hopefully a good holiday season. And the heat hasn't beaten us up as bad as we thought. July looked like it was going to be a really slow month, but it picked up towards the end, and I think we're going to show some pretty good numbers.
I assume Mark was involved in these meetings with G?
Yes.
And that, that's
Yes.
got to help him a lot, I would think.
And I've spoken to Tim about, making sure that Mark and I have the final plans and specifications before they go for approval.
Right.
A little concerned about the curved crossover and the width of the boats, and of course the height of the boats. We already kind of have a marker to tell us when we can and can't go under that railroad bridge, and we've been very fortunate this year, even with the drought, that it hasn't been an issue. But we don't want to have another obstacle like that.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any questions? No. Any items from trustees? Any trustees got any comments?
I'm attached. I'm still turned on. I just want to say I was down there over the weekend for the rowing event, and it was just fantastic. It has, every single time I'm there, you note the improvements and the incredible attention to detail that was spent. This may sound like a very trivial thing, but when you walk up to the finish line tower, just the way the ground cover is laid out, starting in a very tiny little point, it works its way up, and just everything is so beautifully conceived and thought of. It really is an impressive facility. And I hadn't seen it with the sod in place and all the flags flying, and it was wonderful.
Good, thank you. Any other comments, trustees, citizens, comments? Staff, you had your finger on there, I couldn't wait to get you.
Just a quick comment. When we built the dams, 10, 12 years ago, there was concern whether or not the river would hold water. And if you remember that, there was a discussion with those people, and they talked about the ditch that was built back in the 1910s over the overhauls and never held water, and all those horror stories and such that, is it going to hold water or not? And of course, it's not been an issue. Until this summer is the first time we've had problems keeping the river full. And because of the severe drought that we've had, and of course it was the hottest summer, on record, we did not have adequate flow coming down the river to keep all three basins full. So we ended up sacrificing part of the May Basin to pull that water down to keep the other two basins full. And I think we're through that now, and I think they're all full today. But even with that severe drought, we did not impact Mr. Knopp's operations or anything like that. We're able to keep some things. Now, it did impact the river cruisers operation. They had some issues up on the May Basin for a short period of time. But I think it really proves pretty well that even through the severe drought, most people didn't notice it, as it affected the river operation. So that's just a little bit of a side note.
Good, thank you. Mike?
Just wanted to make a couple of quick comments. You may have noted in the paper we had some great feedback from the U.S. Masters Nationals. It was just the most incredible feedback we've ever received. These people, it's a very influential group. People, over 1,000 people are going to go back and talk how this is, an incredible venue, and many were lobbying for this to come back every year here. So I think it was a big hit. The venue performed very nicely. The finish line tower was just, people were raving about that. So we are excited to show it off to you, and on the September 14th, as Pat mentioned, we will have this grand opening ceremony. And then from there, we also have the World Challenge that is coming back, and that will be the end of September with the Oklahoma Regatta Festival, head of the Oklahoma, where we do the night racing. And Germany, Italy, China, Canada have all committed to come. So it'll be quite an event, and the Blue Party will be on September the 30th. So we will be sending out information on that, as well as the Finish Line Tower opening. So anyway, very well received, very exciting about the momentum we continue to build. One note also on the tram concept, we can provide that information to you. It's essentially a golf cart based tram. It looks like a mini version of what you may see at Six Flags or something, but it pulls their actual train cars that go behind what looks like a golf cart. So it's very narrow, and it will fit on the sidewalks and trail and fit our venue very nicely. So it will accommodate about 20 to 22 people per tram. So we're going to give that a try.
Good.
Thank you.
Any comments from Mike? No, thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. Any other comments from trustees? We're adjourned. Thank you.